Hey guys, welcome to my newest video for today. For today's video, I'm going to be doing the second part of my October 2019 horror reviews. I didn't get as many horror movies watched as I was hoping, but I've got 13 movies here to talk about, so I thought that was a decent amount of movies to talk about, so I'm just going to get straight into it. And starting off, I watched As Above, So Below. I actually really like this one. I think it's quite a atmospheric, like creepy, claustrophobic found footage film that takes place in the Paris catacombs. Yeah, it's in like Search for the Philosopher's Stone. Really like this one, so yeah, I watched this one. And then I finally got around to rewatching The Evil Dead. It's been a couple of years since I last watched it. Yeah, I actually forgot about one particular scene that happened, so when that occurred, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So obviously if you've seen the film, you'll know what scene I'm talking about, which watching it in today, like 2019, was a bit awkward, but yeah, it's definitely interesting watching it. But overall, I do like this movie. I didn't watch any of the sequel, I didn't watch the sequel, and I haven't actually seen 3 or the remake, but maybe one of these days I'll get to it. But yeah, I did want to rewatch The Evil Dead. Yeah, I like how it actually takes place predominantly in the actual cabin. I think that works really well, and yeah, it's again sort of, you get that claustrophobic feel, and like the like with the woods, and yeah, it's yeah, I did like revisiting this one because, as I said, it's been a few years. But yeah, so that's The Evil Dead. And then I watched one of my another shark movie that I actually really enjoy, and that is The Reef. This is an Australian shark horror movie that takes place off the Great Barrier Reef, and yeah, they end up being stranded in the ocean, and they've got to swim to land, and obviously a shark's following them. So yeah, I actually really like this one. It's sort of, you know, as I said, one of the better shark movies that I like. So yeah, so I rewatched The Reef. And then I did actually end up watching a first time viewing. I did manage to get to a couple this time around, but it's one I watched on streaming, and that is Galaxy of Terror from 1981. I watched this on Amazon Prime. I wasn't expecting much going in, but I had to watch it based on the title, and I was like, a film called Galaxy of Terror, gotta check this out. It was very cheesy, as I was sort of expecting. I wasn't expecting a great sci-fi horror film, but it was actually entertaining, and some of the visuals were actually very striking, like with the kills and that. And I ended up giving it a 6.5 out of 10. So it's one I would probably revisit down the line. It's yeah, so I was actually very pleasantly surprised by that film. So yeah, Galaxy of Terror. Yeah, I just wrote it down on the piece of paper so I would remember that I did watch it, because I obviously don't own it at this point. And then one of my more recent favourite horror discoveries, A Quiet Place, obviously came out last year, but yeah, it's one of the more unique horror films I find, because it obviously the main characters, they can't actually talk, and yeah, you actually the use of facial, obviously they have to convey with facial expressions, and you can really feel the terror when because they, you can't speak, because otherwise these creatures will track you down and kill you. And yeah, it's a very effective horror movie, and I think the sequel's coming out next year, which I would be interested in seeing. I think it's a sequel. It may have changed to a prequel. I haven't been following the news with what's happening with that, but yeah, I did really enjoy this one. So it's always one I like rewatching, because I've rewatched it last year once I picked up the Blu-ray. But yeah, definitely going to be a new staple as each October. So that's A Quiet Place. And then, of course, had to watch it, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Not much else can be said about this one. You know, I love it. It's, yeah, I love the songs. It's just, it's a lot of fun watching it. There's not much else I can really say about it, but, oh, I think I forgot to say, I haven't been actually giving any ratings with the movies, but, yeah, As Above, So Below would be a 7 out of 10. Evil Dead, 7 out of 10. Reef, 7 out of 10. And yeah, I did say Galaxy of Terror was like 6.5 out of 10. And then A Quiet Place is an 8.5 out of 10. So obviously, with that said, Rocky Horror Picture Show gets a 10 out of 10. So yeah, it's one of my favorites that I love rewatching every October. So yeah, Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then we have another, well, actually we have a couple of first time viewings, and I know one of them made Sarah 1228, I think that's username. I'm very happy because I watched Reanimator. This was a first time viewing. I watched this on Canopy, which is like a film streaming site that's offered through my local library. I get 10 like film credits a month, and I could just, you know, pick a movie to watch, and they had Reanimator on here, and I was like, I'm always curious to, like, I've been curious to check it out, especially since I've heard so much about it, and I get the hype with it. I don't know if I'll ever check out any of the sequels. I mean, maybe if I come across them, I might give it a chance, but yeah, I think out of all the new ones that I watched, this has definitely been my favourite, because I ended up giving it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was really quite interesting watching, and the ending was just like crazy. There was one scene I could have done without because it involved a cat being hurt, because I love animals in general, but I'm particularly fond of cats. And yeah, I could have done without that scene, but it was, yeah, I thought it was actually quite, yeah, an interesting thing, like how they actually did all the reanimation, and yeah, everything that happened with that. And yeah, and I did actually quite like Herb as a character, so yeah, he was very interesting as a yeah, it was a very interesting character. But I did, yeah, finally watched Reanimator, which is from 1985, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And then, unfortunately, we came to a movie that I really didn't like that much. And that is a Scary Movie from 2000. This one I watched on Stan, and I was like, how does this movie have like 5 sequels? That was my reaction, basically, at the end of it, because I was, yeah, I mean, there were a couple of jokes I did actually laugh at, but this movie was so problematic. Yeah, it's, I know I'm watching it from a 2019 perspective, so obviously, you know, maybe back then they could have gotten away with a lot of the stuff that they did, but it was like, yeah, it was like racist, sexist, misogynistic, transphobic. It was all this stuff, and some scenes were kind of awkward to watch because it was there for the punchline, and I didn't find them funny. It was just, yeah, really awkward to watch it, so I'm not going to be bothering with any of the sequels, because I ended up giving it like a 4 out of 10. It was, yeah. I mean, I checked it out because I'd been curious about it, because admittedly, these type of parody movies that I've only watched is the superhero movie one, which I did actually enjoy back in the day, but yeah, this did not like Scary Movie. I know some people do like it, but yeah, not for me, this one. So yeah, that's all I can say about that one. And then I watched another one of my favourites after that. So that was Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber of Fleet Street. This is obviously the 2007 movie. And in case you hadn't guessed, I love horror musicals. I seem to have a few. I didn't quite realise just how many I actually own and I've watched this past October. But yeah, I love this movie. Yeah, it's very interesting to watch, like, because it's mostly all like dark and gloomy, but then it has such an interesting juxtaposition with the colors. Like, you sort of go from, like, yeah, the dull grey of London, and then you sort of switch to a seaside and it's all bright and perky in that. But yeah, I always find it's so interesting watching it, how Tim Burton does like the visuals in this. And yeah, I really like, I love the songs. I really do like Johnny Depp in this, like him and Helena Bonham Carter. It's, yeah, it's definitely a 10 out of 10 for me in this one. So that is Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And then I don't know if you can really class it. I mean, it's, the genre is technically classed as space horror, but it's not like super intense or anything. And it's very obviously they're trying to do a new like alien type movie. But it's of course talking about life. I actually do enjoy this. I think it's yeah, I especially found the ending quite effective, with the big twist at the end. Well, it was a big twist for me. It's probably not for a lot of people, but I did like this one. I thought it was, I liked how it all takes place on a space station, because that's like one of my favorite settings in any movie, is when they take place like in a location like on a space station. It's, I don't know, I've always loved that location. And then of course you have the creature who you know, starts growing and then starts killing off the main characters. But yeah, I enjoy this one. I would have been interested in a sequel, but I don't think it did that well in the at the box office. So yeah, but I do quite like this one, so it's interesting. I liked rewatching it, so I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. So that's Life. And then another recent shark movie that I quite enjoy from last few years, and that is 47 Meters Down. Yeah, I did think this is one of the more effective ones, and it's I mean, the beginning it takes a bit to get into, but once they get actually into the cage and start, you know, going down in and then everything that happens, I think this once you get past like the first 20 minutes, it's really intense, and yeah, you sort of become invested in the characters and in see if they're going to survive and that. And I think it has one of the more interesting endings as well, like because I remember when I first watched it, I wasn't expecting the ending. So I don't know if I'll get to see the sequel at the cinema, because it is coming out at my local cinema is getting it, but I don't know if I'm actually going to have a chance to go and watch it. But I am interested in seeing the sequel, which I don't think has anything actually to do with this one, but yeah, I do quite like this. So yeah, I wanted to rewatch this, since it's again one of my favorite like shark movies. So I gave this one a 6.5 out of 10. And then I went for something completely different, and I wanted to bring out my Universal Monsters box set that I got quite a few years ago, and I revisited Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's been like 6 years since I actually watched this movie, and I was actually really surprised at how much I did actually enjoy this one, because I didn't remember a lot about it when I revisited it. But like, for such a short movie, like it's an hour 20 minutes, so it's not very long, but how they sort of portray the creature, and they sort of install that fear and that in it, and like especially like the water, I think it's done really effective. And yeah, I ended up quite enjoying it, so I'm glad I revisited it. So it's definitely one I think need to revisit more. So yeah, watched Creature from the Black Lagoon from 1954, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. And then last but certainly not least, I finally checked out Bird Box, which is of course a Netflix original movie from last year, and I ended up giving this a 7 out of 10. It actually surprised me. I wasn't quite sure what to think, because I know it's opinions a bit mixed on it, but I can sort of see why people wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed it as much, because and I think it was one of the main complaints was you don't really get an explanation for what is causing everything, and like what causes people to go insane, and why some people it impacts people differently. And yeah, it's very sort of how they sort of did it at the start. I found it actually quite interesting. And then of course you have the journey when Sandra Bullock's character is trying to get her children like to safety, and that in the journey across the river. I thought that one was actually quite well done. So yeah, so overall, like, I thought the story was actually pretty decent, and yeah, it's like it did have some intense like visual imagery, like, because obviously it's sort of dealing with like people's just committing suicide, and yeah, so there's obviously trigger warnings like, yeah, for suicide, and for like strong like some of the violence in it can actually get quite intense as well. So there is that warning for there, because I don't think it's going to be for everyone. But yeah, because I haven't actually read the book, so I don't know what the different, like, any differences are, whether it's a faithful adaptation. I think this actually would have made a really good TV show if I think it could have expanded a bit, like maybe a mini series or something. But I thought for a film it was actually pretty decent, and yeah, as I said, I gave it a 7 out of 10. So there we have it. That is the second part of my October 2019 horror reviews. As I said, I was hoping to get a bit more horror films watched, but it didn't quite work out that way. But I am happy with the ones that I watched. I ended up, well, with the exception of one movie, but everything else I was fine with. And then yeah, so I may actually do this again next year, just sort of covered like 2 parts, like do it into sort of what I watched for the first half of October and then the second half. But we'll see how I feel like this time next year. But yeah, I'm just gonna stop it here. So thank you guys for watching, and until my next video, I will see you guys next time. Bye.